why you feel lost even when you're free. You wake up, check your phone, scroll through lives that look better than yours, get dressed in clothes that tell the world who you want them to think you are, go to a job you're not sure you believe in, come home, distract yourself until you're tired enough to sleep, repeat. And somewhere in all of that, you ask yourself a question that terrifies you. Is this it? Is this freedom? Welcome to Mind in Exile. And today we're going to talk about something nobody wants to admit, that despite having more freedom than any generation in human history, you feel more lost than ever. More choices, more opportunities, more rights, more autonomy, and yet more anxiety, more depression, more existential dread. You have the freedom to be anyone, do anything, go anywhere. So why does it feel like you're homeless? Not physically homeless, spiritually homeless. Like you're wandering through life without a map, without a destination, without even knowing what you're looking for. In the 19th century, a German philosopher named Friedrich Nietzsche predicted this exact moment. He warned that humanity was heading toward a crisis. Not an economic crisis or a political crisis, a meaning crisis. He famously declared that God is dead. And before you roll your eyes thinking this is about religion, stay with me. Because what Nietzsche meant wasn't literal. He meant that the foundations upon which Western civilization had built meaning for thousands of years were crumbling. The structures that told people who they were, what mattered, how to live, why to live, all of it was dissolving. And in its place, nothing. Just freedom. Raw, terrifying, unbounded freedom. And Nietzsche asked a question that still haunts us today. Can humanity handle that kind of freedom? Can you handle it? Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Freedom without meaning is just another word for lost. You can go anywhere, but if you don't know where you're going, you're just wandering. You can be anyone, but if you don't know who you are, you're just performing. You can do anything, but if you don't know why you're doing it, you're just passing time. This is what Nietzsche called nihilism, the belief in nothing, the absence of inherent meaning, purpose, value. And he predicted that as traditional structures collapsed, as religion lost its grip, as science explained away mystery, as individualism replaced community, humanity would find itself in a void, a spiritual homelessness. And he was right. Look around. How many people do you know who genuinely believe their life has meaning? Not the kind of meaning they perform on social media, not the kind they've been told they should believe in, but deep, unshakable meaning that gets them out of bed with purpose. Most people are running on autopilot, going through motions they never consciously chose, living scripts written by parents, culture, algorithms, peers, and the few who break free, who claim their freedom, often find themselves paralyzed by it. Because freedom is heavy. Jean-Paul Sartre said we are condemned to be free, that existence precedes essence, that you're thrown into this world with no predetermined purpose and you have to create your own. But nobody prepared you for that weight. You were raised in a world that promised you meaning if you just followed the rules. Get good grades, you'll be successful. Get a good job, you'll be fulfilled. Find a partner, you'll be complete. Accumulate things, you'll be happy. But you did all that, or you're trying to do all that, and the promised meaning never arrived. Instead, you just feel tired. Tired of pretending, tired of performing. Tired of waiting for your life to finally feel like it means something. This is spiritual homelessness, the sense that you don't belong anywhere because you don't know what you're supposed to belong to. You've been told you can be anything, which sounds empowering until you realize it also means you are nothing until you decide. And how do you decide? What do you base it on? Your desires change, your goals shift, your identity evolves. What you wanted at 20 feels meaningless at 30. What seemed important yesterday feels trivial today. So where is the stable ground? Where is the foundation? Nietzsche believed that the death of God, the collapse of absolute values, would lead to two possible paths. Either humanity would descend into complete nihilism, losing itself in meaninglessness and despair, or humanity would rise to the challenge and become what he called the Übermensch, the overman. Not a superhuman in the comic book sense, but a person who creates their own values, their own meaning, their own purpose. Someone who doesn't need external validation or inherited traditions to tell them what matters. Someone who looks into the void and says, I will create meaning here. But here's the problem. Creating your own meaning is terrifying. It's easier to adopt someone else's meaning, to follow a religion, an ideology, a trend, a guru, to let someone else tell you what matters so you don't have to face the responsibility of deciding for yourself. And modern life has given you endless options for borrowed meaning. Consumerism tells you meaning is in acquiring. Social media tells you meaning is in being seen. Productivity culture tells you meaning is in achieving. Wellness culture tells you meaning is in optimizing. But none of it fills the void. Because it's not your meaning. It's borrowed, rented, temporary. And deep down, you know it. That's why you can achieve everything you're supposed to want and still feel empty. That's why you can be surrounded by people and still feel alone. That's why you can have all the freedom in the world and still feel trapped. Because you're spiritually homeless. You've been evicted from the structures that once provided meaning, and you haven't yet built a home of your own. Let me tell you a story. In ancient Greece, there was a philosopher named Diogenes. He lived in a barrel in the marketplace. He owned nothing but a cloak and a wooden bowl. One day, Alexander the Great, the most powerful man in the world, came to visit him. Alexander stood over Diogenes and said, "I am Alexander the Great. Ask me for anything, and I will give it to you." Diogenes looked up at him and said, "Yes, there is something you can do for me. Step aside. You're blocking the sun." Alexander was reportedly so impressed by this that he said, "If I were not Alexander, I would wish to be Diogenes." This story illustrates something profound. Diogenes had nothing. No home, no possessions, no status, no security. But he was not spiritually homeless. He had something Alexander, with all his power and wealth, did not have. Autonomy over his own values. He knew what mattered to him, and it wasn't what society said should matter. The sun mattered. His own peace of mind mattered. Living according to his own principles mattered. He didn't need anyone to validate his choices because his meaning came from within. Now, I'm not saying you should go live in a barrel, but the question Diogenes forces us to ask is this: what do you actually value? Not what you've been told to value, not what will impress people, not what will make your parents proud or your peers jealous. What do you value when no one is watching? Most people can't answer that question because they've never actually asked it. They've been too busy following scripts, chasing goals that were handed to them, performing identities they never chose. And that's the core of spiritual homelessness. You're lost because you're living someone else's life. You're free because modern society gave you options. But you're trapped because you never learned how to choose for yourself. Nietzsche said something that sounds harsh but is actually liberating. He said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." Meaning, if you know your purpose, your reason, your why, you can endure almost anything. But the inverse is also true. If you don't have a why, even comfort becomes unbearable. Even freedom becomes a prison. That's why people with everything still struggle. That's why mental health crises are rising in the wealthiest, freest societies, because material comfort and personal freedom don't automatically generate meaning. In fact, they can make the absence of meaning more obvious. When you have everything you're supposed to want and you still feel empty, you can no longer blame external circumstances. You have to face the uncomfortable truth that the problem is internal, that you don't have a why. And finding a why is not something anyone can do for you. Your parents can't give it to you. Your partner can't give it to you. Your job can't give it to you. Society definitely can't give it to you. You have to create it. And that's the terrifying, beautiful, unbearable responsibility of modern freedom. So how do you do it? How do you stop being spiritually homeless? How do you build a home within yourself? First, you have to stop running from the void. Most people avoid silence, avoid stillness, avoid being alone with their thoughts. Because in those moments, the absence of meaning becomes deafening. So they scroll, binge, work, party, shop, anything to fill the space. But you can't build a foundation while you're running. You have to stop, sit in the discomfort, face the void, and ask yourself the hard questions. What do I actually care about? What would I do if no one was watching? What legacy do I want to leave? What brings me alive? Not what should bring me alive. What actually does? Second, you have to stop living for external validation. Nietzsche talked about master morality versus slave morality. Slave morality defines good and bad based on external judgment. What others approve of is good. What others condemn is bad. You live reactively, constantly adjusting yourself to fit what others expect. Master morality, on the other hand, defines good and bad based on internal values. What aligns with your principles is good. What contradicts them is bad. You live proactively, according to your own standards. Most modern people live in slave morality. They're so concerned with how they're perceived that they lose touch with who they actually are. They perform versions of themselves designed to be liked, admired, accepted, but those versions are hollow. And living that way makes you spiritually homeless because you're never actually home. You're always somewhere else, trying to be someone else. To build a home within yourself, you have to stop seeking approval and start seeking alignment. Alignment between your actions and your values, between your life and your principles, between who you are in public and who you are in private. That's integrity, and integrity is the foundation of meaning. Third, you have to embrace responsibility. This is where Nietzsche's concept of the Übermensch comes in. The Übermensch doesn't wait for meaning to be handed to them. They create it. They take full responsibility for their life, their choices, their values. They don't blame circumstances, society, or their past. They say, "This is my life. I will decide what it means." And that's terrifying because it means there's no one to blame if it doesn't work out. No one to credit if it does. Just you, responsible for all of it. But that responsibility is also freedom. Real freedom. Not the shallow freedom of having options, but the deep freedom of owning your choices. Viktor Frankl, a psychologist who survived Nazi concentration camps, wrote about this. He said that even in the most horrific circumstances, the one thing that can't be taken from you is your ability to choose your attitude, your ability to decide what your suffering means. He found meaning in the worst conditions imaginable by taking responsibility for his own response. And if he could do that in a concentration camp, you can do it in your comfortable, free, modern life. You can decide what your life means, but you have to choose. And here's the final uncomfortable truth. Most people won't. Most people will continue wandering. They'll continue borrowing meaning from trends, ideologies, brands, influencers. They'll continue performing for validation, avoiding the void, blaming circumstances. Because creating your own meaning is hard. It requires courage. It requires honesty. It requires sitting with discomfort and uncertainty. Most people would rather be spiritually homeless than face that. But you're watching this video, which means part of you knows there's more. Part of you is tired of wandering. Part of you is ready to build a home within yourself. So here's what I want you to do. Not tomorrow, not when you have more time, right now. Turn off this video when it ends. Don't immediately scroll to the next thing. Sit in silence for 5 minutes and ask yourself one question. If I could live my life according to my own values, what would change? Not what should change according to society. What would change according to you? Write it down, not for anyone else, for yourself, because that's the first step. Acknowledging that you have the power to create your own meaning, that you don't have to wait for permission, for the right circumstances, for someone else to show you the way. You are the way. Nietzsche ended one of his books with a powerful idea. He said, "Become who you are, not who you should be, not who others want you to be, who you actually are beneath all the conditioning, all the performance, all the borrowed meanings." And the only way to discover who that is to stop running and start building. Build your values, build your purpose, build your meaning, build a home within yourself, because the world won't do it for you. And freedom without that foundation is just spiritual homelessness. But with it, with a clear sense of who you are and what you stand for, freedom becomes possibility, a canvas on which you paint your own life, on your own terms, according to your own values. That's not just freedom, that's sovereignty. This is mind in exile. And maybe the exile isn't the problem. Maybe it's the beginning. The moment you realize you don't need the structures that collapsed. You can build your own. Stop wandering. Start building. Your life is waiting for you to give it meaning. No one else can do that for you. Only you.